I'm Ted Giovanis, and I'm the president and founder of the JKTG Foundation. We mostly conduct breast cancer research, primarily in metastasis, and this is an opportunity to have a brief discussion with one of our researchers, Laura Heiser from Oregon Health and Science University. Laura, why don't you say a few words about your background and your work here?
Great. Thank you, Ted. Good to have a chance to chat with you and talk a little bit about some of the work in my lab. I am an associate professor in the Department of Biomedical Engineering at OHSU, and I run a research lab focused on breast cancer, where we are using both experimental and computational approaches to understand the disease. A lot of the work that I do is team science. It turns out that biology and cancer are really complicated, and there's a lot of different ways to think about addressing the disease and improving outcomes for patients. And so one of the things that I've done in my career is to work together closely with collaborators with different expertise and backgrounds to really think about moving the needle and really advancing our understanding of disease.
And now I have a few questions that will kick it off. Is what is the key question your research is trying to answer now?
Yep. The key thing that we are focused on is how can we improve treatments and outcomes for patients with breast cancer? And really, to address this question, we're taking a very holistic approach. So traditionally, cancers have been thought about as a ball of mutant cells, right? There is a genetic alteration or a genetic mutation that leads these cells to grow and form tumors. And that concept really motivated the idea of personalized therapies that can target one of those specific mutations. And there are some really great examples of how effective that approach is. But the reality is that most cancers outsmart those targeted therapies and become resistant. And so the question is, how do they do that? And what can we do to prevent that? And the key thing to keep in mind is that tumors are actually comprised of many different cell types and many different signals, and they're always interacting with each other. So they're forming a complex system. One could say a little bit like a car with a lot of parts that are needed to work together in a coordinated way to get the car to do what you want it to do and to drive safely. So you can think about treating cancer kind of like fixing a car. So first you have to figure out what's under the hood and what's wrong. And a super quick repair, that might get things running for a little while, but a really long-lasting solution is going to mean you have to understand how the different parts work together. So in terms of thinking about the research aspect, so similar to a mechanic using diagnostic tools on a car, we used advanced technologies and computer models to try to predict the treatments that will best control that tumor and get the whole system running smoothly again.
Yeah, no, thank you, Laura. And it's very clear to think more complicated. So it's a complex problem, requires a complex way of diagnosing and solving it. How has a research approach impacted your life outside the lab?
Yeah, this is a fun question. Sort of the idea of when does one stop being a scientist? And I think there's that permeates many aspects of my life and the way I think about different things. I think first is just a fundamental curiosity about the unknown. So whether we're thinking about cancer or whether we're thinking about other questions. So for instance, one of my hobbies is gardening. And so I've gotten really quite into, and in particular with one of my daughters, thinking about what's the best way to construct our garden, because we're really trying to be green and to plant only natives, and so to really be thinking about what's the best strategy for removing that invasive ivy, and for finding the plants, which plants go where, And how do we outsmart the deer and the rabbits? So there's a lot of try again when it comes to the gardening, which is also similar to what we're, the idea and the determination we need when we're thinking about research as well.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because it's always what we work on can apply to life and vice versa. What has surprised you most about working in your work with the JKTG Foundation?
This foundation is very unique in terms of the willingness and interest in driving truly innovative research and really allowing scientists to explore new ideas. And that is something that's very refreshing because there are a lot of there's a lot of funded research and funding agencies that tend to be much more conservative in the way they're thinking about projects in terms of whether a project may be high risk, high reward. You know, can we really blaze new territory? But one of the most interesting things is really the keen interest in JKTGF, seeing the science through and also learning along with researchers. You know, really thinking about what are some of the key questions and what are the cool findings. And there's, you know, really getting interested in and excited about some of the new ideas and new findings has been, I think, one of the more surprising things for me.
No, well, yeah, we appreciate, you know, all your efforts and how you've worked with the foundation over the years, and I think what you're doing is you're really saying that, or the way I look at it is these new analytic platforms. A lot of what comes out of investment in those things and provoking people to work together is we find out things, we find more out faster. And
yes,
that is what we hope will accelerate what we know and then what we ultimately do in effect vis-a-vis patients and what we do for patients. And so I think that's sort of why the foundation likes to work in this particular space. Although sometimes the findings are kind of subtle in how,
yes,
where it results in a new analytic platform or new languages or new way to do things. But that magnifies across many researchers across the country and across the world with the way you guys have caused collaborations to occur. So it's really
yes,
cool. And so
yes.
and with that, we thank you for your work and your efforts involved in the foundation and all the other things you do with us, with giving us ideas for our speaker panels and whatever at the symposium. So thank you very much, and thanks for listening, everybody. And hopefully you'll come back for our next interaction with our driving research series with speakers.
Thank you, Ted. It was great.